I want to talk about Ohio State. I want to talk about Michigan, which may be one of the biggest games in college football history. And no, that is not an exaggeration. Ever since last year, when Michigan beat up on Ohio State in the shoe, these two teams have been on a collision course once again to go head to head. Now we'll see. At the time this podcast comes out, obviously, the committee rankings for this week are not out yet. They'll be out tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I expect, Georgia to still be there at the top. These two teams to be right where they're at. And obviously, Michigan survived a scare against Maryland. But really, they dominated the whole half. They let Maryland get back into it in the second half. And then Ohio State takes care of business against Minnesota. We all know the personalness, the bitterness between these two teams. They basically want to go to war against each other, and the loser of this game is probably going to be out of the college football playoff. That was not the case last year, but it's going to be fascinating to see if Alabama does beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Then Alabama goes on to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. If that is Georgia's only loss, to me, that resume may be better than the loser of Ohio State, Michigan, because obviously Bama and the loser of Ohio State, Michigan would both have one loss. And the advantage there is Bama would have beat, presumably, the number one team in the country in Georgia, which is why this game is absolutely vital because we all expect the winner of this game to go on and crush. It looks like it's going to be Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. These two teams are very similar in style. They want to run the football, be physical. They both have great defenses. Michigan, first round quarterback this year, J.J. McCarthy. For Ohio State, Kyle McCord, who's essentially going to be a 1 year starter. Ohio State has quarterbacks coming in next year. He has not been the best at times, but he has grown up throughout this season. I think just like last year, and similarly to every Ohio State Michigan game, it's going to be who wins the line of scrimmage. Now we know with everything that's going on right now with the Michigan scandal, I've defended Jim Harbaugh. At times, I feel like that it feels like the Big Ten is sort of out to get Harbaugh. Now, apparently, if the Big Ten told Michigan that they have alarming evidence against them, we'll see what goes on against them with the NCAA investigation. But I do find it kind of interesting that Michigan backed off their stance, that Harbaugh did not push to coach in these games. So, who knows? Maybe Michigan was a bit more guilty than I originally thought. Nonetheless, I still don't know if the sign stealing scandal, even if they did have this big scandal, I don't know how much of an advantage it was. It helped them in these games. I mean, they are just so deep. They crush people. They can run the football. They stop the run, and they really get on you early. And that's going to be the key here for both of these teams. Michigan has not showed a lot this year, obviously. Ohio State has not showed a lot this year early. If one of these teams can get a 10-0 lead early, it's going to put the other team significantly behind. And for this young Ohio State quarterback going into the big house for the first time, that Michigan environment, the whole crowd behind Michigan, it could be a little bit overwhelming for Ohio State, who has a lot of pressure on themselves because Ryan Day has lost the last two times to Michigan, not only in the big house, but at the shoe as well, which was damning last year. I think this is going to be a little more of a low scoring game, a lot like the Michigan Penn State and the Ohio State Penn State games were. I think it's going to be ball control, run the football. I'm going to say that at home, I think Michigan gets a slight advantage even without Arp on the sideline. JJ McCarthy makes a play late. Michigan wins the game, somewhere like 2017, 24-20, somewhere along those lines. I don't think either team blows the other one out. Now, is there potential for Ohio State to come out mad and just run the ball down Michigan's throat and prove they are the best team in the country? Because they absolutely believe that. Yes, I can see that. But I do believe that both of these teams are on even playing field. I would love for this to not be the last two times these two teams play. I would love for it to be, Georgia in there and maybe maybe like a number two or a number one at number 2. And then, maybe you put Alabama or Oregon or Washington or whoever in there at number 3. And these two guys are number 1 and number 4. We'll see how it all comes about. Obviously, the committee's decision will be the day after championship weekend next weekend. But I think these two teams are so evenly matched. It's a great rivalry for somebody who does live in Ohio, but who is not an Ohio State fan, who is not a Michigan fan, who again is just a fan of general big college football games. This is when college football matters. This weekend and beyond. You get to see the top prospects. You get to do some scouting for the draft. This is when the big boys play, the big competition. Some of that's going to change next year, but at least for this year, the cupcakes are over. The real schedule starts now. And yeah, I think these are the most two even teams in the country. Again, I think the team that runs the football better, controls the line of scrimmage, will dominate. If one of the teams can get an early lead, I think the other team will be in trouble. I think it'll be nick and knack, a defensive game in the first half. Michigan takes control, runs the ball. They win the game 20-17, and I do think they'll finish the season number 1 as the best team in the country, even without Jim Harbaugh. They're just a little bit deeper, and I think the noise and the pressure will get to McCord of Ohio State. Like that clip from the Brand Sports Podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand Sports Podcast right here on YouTube.